Let's set the scene. Sydney Sweeney had just come out of a 7-year relationship with her longtime fiancé, a businessman she'd been with since 2018. That engagement ended in early 2025. Scooter Braun, the music executive known for managing some of the biggest names in the industry, was also freshly out of a long marriage. Then came the wedding of the summer. Jeff Bezos and Sánchez got married in Venice, Italy, in June 2025, and it turned into one of the most star-studded events of the year. Somewhere in that whirlwind of yachts and paparazzi, Sydney and Scooter were first spotted together. Now here's where things get interesting. Nobody confirmed anything for months. No statements. No comments. Just a slow drip of sightings that kept fueling speculation. This is where most people start connecting dots. Reports began surfacing that the two were, in the words used by entertainment outlets citing insider sources, casually seeing each other, not exclusive, not serious. Just two newly single people in their 20s and 40s enjoying life after big breakups. That's the kind of framing that usually cools speculation down. But it didn't. Because a casual fling doesn't usually end up biking through Times Square together, doesn't usually end up on a private jet, and definitely doesn't usually end up meeting the parents. And that's exactly what happened next. In November, cameras caught the two of them on a date in Central Park, and this time there was no ambiguity. It wasn't a paparazzi shot from far away that could be explained as two friends grabbing coffee. This was affectionate, public, and unmistakable. Here's why that moment matters so much for the PR debate. If this were purely a manufactured publicity relationship, you'd expect a controlled rollout, a magazine cover, a joint interview, a carefully staged photo with perfect lighting. Instead, what people got was a candid, almost messy public display that looked a lot more like real affection caught off guard than a marketing plan. By spring, the relationship reached the stage every celebrity couple eventually hits, the Instagram hard launch. Sydney posted a black and white photo with Scooter's arms around her, added a small heart, and let the image speak for itself. Scooter reposted it with a short, playful caption of his own. Now this next part might surprise you. A hard launch on social media is often seen as proof that a relationship is being managed for public consumption. But think about it from a different angle. If Sydney Sweeney wanted maximum PR benefit, she had way bigger stages to use than a quiet Instagram story. She could have timed it around a movie premiere, a magazine cover, an award show red carpet. Instead, she chose one of the lowest key ways possible to confirm it. Let's go back to that word for a second, because I think it trips a lot of people up. When early reports described things as casual, a huge chunk of the internet immediately read that as code for not real or temporary. But that's not actually how casual works in the early stages of any relationship, famous or not. Think about your own life for a second. When you first start seeing someone, you don't introduce them as your partner after the second date. You keep things loose on purpose because you're still figuring out if this is worth building into something bigger. Celebrities aren't any different. The only real difference is that their getting to know you phase happens with photographers hiding nearby instead of nobody watching at all. So when insiders describe the early stage as low-key and undefined, that wasn't necessarily a red flag. It was just an accurate description of where any new relationship sits in its first few months, whether you're famous or completely anonymous. This is where a lot of PR relationship theories start to fall apart. Reports surfaced that Scooter had spent time with Sydney's parents, including a family date night. Her mother was later seen departing on a flight linked to Braun before Valentine's Day. Publicists don't usually script grandma and grandpa appearances. Family integration is one of the strongest real-world signals in any relationship, celebrity or not, because it requires trust that goes far beyond a few staged photos. If this were only about optics, you wouldn't typically see the partner's parents woven into the story this deeply, this early. Let's steelman the other side, because a fair breakdown has to. Both Sydney and Scooter have projects that benefit from public attention. Sydney has an expanding lingerie and lifestyle brand, along with a new film project. Scooter runs a business built on visibility and headlines. In an industry where attention translates directly into revenue, it would be naive to pretend that being one of the most talked about couples in Hollywood doesn't help both of their brands. And this is where most people make a mistake in this debate. They treat real and beneficial for PR as if they cancel each other out. They don't. A relationship can be completely genuine and still generate useful publicity as a side effect. Those two things are not mutually exclusive, no matter how much online discourse treats them like they are. Sydney has talked openly in interviews about how difficult it is to navigate love in the public eye after spending her 20s focused entirely on her career. She's described wanting to experience things outside of work now, while also admitting that dating as a famous person comes with a level of scrutiny that normal relationships never have to deal with. That kind of vulnerability doesn't usually show up in a purely manufactured storyline. PR relationships tend to stay surface level. They avoid personal reflection because personal reflection invites questions a publicist can't control. For anyone who only knows Scooter Braun as the guy dating Sydney Sweeney, it's worth understanding why his presence in this story carries extra weight. Braun built his career as one of the most influential music executives of the last 2 decades, managing major pop stars and building a business empire around discovering and shaping talent. He's someone who has spent his entire adult life around fame, cameras, and public scrutiny, long before this relationship ever started. That background actually cuts both ways in this debate. On one hand, it means he understands exactly how public perception works, which is why some skeptics assume he knows how to manufacture a narrative better than almost anyone in the industry. On the other hand, it also means he's lived through enough real tabloid cycles to know the difference between manufactured attention and an actual relationship, and by most accounts, he's kept this one notably quieter than you'd expect from someone trying to maximize headlines. He also came out of a long marriage of his own, with 3 kids at the center of that chapter of his life. That's not a small detail. Starting a new public relationship while co-parenting isn't the kind of thing most people take on lightly for the sake of a publicity boost. It usually means there's something real enough on the other side to make that complexity worth it. If you've spent any time in the comment sections of entertainment news, you've probably noticed a pattern. Every time a new celebrity couple goes public, someone brings up past examples where the romance quietly fizzled out right after the movie premiere or album cycle ended. That history is exactly why so many people default to skepticism the moment 2 famous names start showing up together. It's a fair instinct. Hollywood has trained audiences to expect timing that lines up a little too perfectly. But timing alone isn't proof. The real test is whether the relationship keeps showing up in ordinary, low-stakes moments long after the initial press cycle has died down. Birthdays, holidays, quiet nights that were never meant to be photographed in the first place. And that's exactly the pattern that kept playing out here, month after month, well past the point where any single project needed the boost. Part of why this story generated so much conversation online comes down to the age difference between the 2 of them. Sydney is in her 20s, Scooter is in his 40s. That gap alone was enough to spark endless debate across social media, with some people calling it completely normal and others questioning the optics of it. But here's the thing worth remembering. Age gaps in Hollywood relationships are nothing new, and public reaction to them says a lot more about internet culture than it does about whether a relationship is genuine. Strip away the noise, and what's left is just 2 adults who met at an event, kept seeing each other, and eventually let the relationship become public on their own terms. So, PR stunt or real romance? Based on everything laid out here, the pattern doesn't match a typical manufactured celebrity relationship. The rollout was slow instead of strategically timed. The public moments were candid instead of staged, and the involvement of family members points towards something with actual emotional weight behind it. Could there be a PR benefit riding alongside it? Almost certainly. But that's true of nearly every high-profile relationship in Hollywood. The presence of a PR upside doesn't automatically mean the relationship itself is fake. If 2 people happen to fall for each other and that story also happens to be good for headlines, that's not proof of manipulation. That's just what happens when 2 very famous people date each other in a world where every date gets photographed. So here's the takeaway. This relationship shows far more signs of being genuine than staged, even though both people clearly benefit from the attention it brings. Real love and good publicity aren't opposites. Sometimes they just happen to show up at the exact same time. And remember that detail I promised you at the start? It's the family piece. Once parents get pulled into the picture, this stops looking like a script and starts looking like a real relationship playing out in front of cameras neither of them fully control. If this video helped you finally understand what's actually going on between Sydney Sweeney and Scooter Braun, you're going to want to stick around. Because next I'm breaking down another Hollywood couple everyone's been arguing about, and this one might surprise you even more. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it, drop a like if this cleared things up for you, and let me know in the comments, real romance or good PR? I'll see you in the next one.